Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to take a close look at Gland Pharma's Q2 FY25 results. We've got reports, presentations, you name it. The thing that really jumped out at me, honestly, is this. Gland Pharma is showing impressive revenue growth, but one of their acquisitions, Cenexi, is really struggling. So is Gland Pharma really on the right path? And what does this new director, Mrs. Wei Huang, tell us about their future? Let's find out.
It is a bit of a puzzle, isn't it? You've got these two kind of opposite things happening at the same time.
Yeah, so let's start big picture. Gland Pharma reported a consolidated revenue of INR 14,058 million for Q2 FY25. That's a 2% increase year over year, but their EBITDA actually decreased by 8%.
Yeah, and that decrease in EBITDA despite revenue growth is interesting. It suggests that while they are bringing in more money, their profitability might be taking a bit of a hit. The consolidated EBITDA margin dropped to 21% from 23% in the same quarter last year.
Okay, so why are the profits shrinking?
It seems like a key factor is the performance of Cenexi. But before we get into that, it's important to highlight that Gland's base business, excluding Cenexi, is actually doing quite well. Their base business revenue grew by a healthy 5% year over year, reaching INR 10,659 million.
And their base business EBITDA also saw a 5% jump, which leaves them with a really strong EBITDA margin of 34%. So that really shows the difference in performance between the core business and the Cenexi acquisition.
Exactly. It seems like there are two separate stories playing out here. To understand Gland's overall health, we really need to look at both.
All right, let's dive a little deeper into the base business performance, excluding Cenexi, to see where the strength is coming from, what's working for them.
So in Q2 FY25, their revenue was INR 10,659 million, with a stable gross margin of 56%. That means they're keeping their production costs under control, which is good. Their EBITDA reached INR 3,645 million, which again reflects that healthy 34% margin we talked about.
And they're clearly investing in the future, too. Their R&D expenses totaled INR 493 million. That's 4.6% of their revenue.
That's right. And they're also expanding their product portfolio. During Q2, they filed 7 ANDAs. Those are applications to sell generic drugs in the U.S., and they received approval for 8 others.
So they're adding to their arsenal. How does that stack up against their overall presence in the U.S. market?
Well, with those new filings and approvals, their total ANDA filings in the U.S. is now 363, with 304 approved and 59 pending. That's a pretty big footprint. And globally, they have a huge 1,726 product registrations.
Wow, that's a lot of products. So they're really not sitting still.
Yeah.
What else are they doing to drive growth?
They've launched new products. In the U.S. market, they've introduced 4 new molecules: cetrorelix, acetate, ephedrine, sulfate, tranexamic acid, and diazepam. And they're not just focused on the U.S., they're also making moves in the Chinese market. They have 4 products under development there and 5 that are already approved.
It sounds like they're ticking all the boxes for a growth-oriented company. But something that really caught my eye was their success in the complex injectable segment.
Yeah, that's a really interesting area for them.
Tell me more. What have they done there?
Okay, so they've completed filings for 9 products out of a targeted portfolio of 19 in the complex injectable segment. 6 of these products are already approved and launched. And they expect approvals for 3 more to come through soon.
Wow, 9 down, 10 to go. Why is this segment so important?
Well, these complex injectables represent a massive market opportunity. It's worth about $7.3 billion, according to IQVIA.
Wow, $7.3 billion. That's incredible. This could be huge for their future growth.
Absolutely. It looks like they've found an area where they can really excel and take advantage of a big opportunity.
And one more thing. They're moving into the world of biologics.
That's right. They've teamed up with Dr. Reddy's Laboratories to create a biologics CDMO business.
What does CDMO mean?
It stands for Contract Development and Manufacturing Organization. Basically, they'll be helping other companies develop and manufacture biologics, medicines made from living organisms.
So they're using their skills to tap into a new and growing market. Very smart.
Yeah. And they'll be using their state-of-the-art biologics manufacturing facility in Hyderabad.
So we've got a company with a strong base business, a smart move into complex injectables, and now a move into biologics. Everything sounds pretty promising so far. But now for the elephant in the room, Cenexi. This is where things get a little bit complicated.
The Cenexi situation is definitely a bit of a contrast to the rest of the picture. Let's take a look at what's going on over there.
Give me the rundown. What are the challenges?
Well, their revenue declined by 5% year over year. It's at INR 3,399 million. Their gross margin also took a hit. It went from 77% in Q2 FY24 down to 69%.
So less revenue and less profit on that revenue.
That's
not good. What else?
Their EBITDA was negative at INR 685 million. Negative EBITDA is bad news because it means they're losing money on their operations.
Ouch. What's causing these setbacks for Cenexi?
One of the main issues seems to be a lyophilizer breakdown at their site in Belgium.
For those of us who aren't familiar with pharmaceutical manufacturing lingo, what does a lyophilizer do and why is this breakdown such a big deal?
Sure, a lyophilizer is basically a fancy freeze dryer. It's used to remove moisture from products, especially injectables, without damaging them. This process is super important for making sure lots of drugs stay stable and work properly. So you can see how a broken lyophilizer can really disrupt production and their finances.
That makes sense. So they're managing with their other lyophilizers, but this is definitely going to impact their overall performance. When will they have it fixed?
They're saying it will be fully fixed within the quarter, and they're also installing a backup unit in the first half of 2025.
Good to hear. So despite all this, what's the outlook for Cenexi? Are they optimistic?
They're hoping for a positive EBITDA by Q4 of FY25. That would be a big turnaround. And their long-term goal is to have positive EBITDA for the next fiscal year with revenue over 200 million.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they have a plan. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Okay, there's one more piece of news we need to discuss, the appointment of Miss Wei Huang as an additional director.
Yes, Ms. Wong. That's really interesting. It could be a big clue about where Gland Pharma is going.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is a big deal. Tell us about her and why it matters.
Miss Huang has over 30 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries.
30 years. Wow. What does she do now?
She's the president of Shanghai Henlius Biotech Inc. They're a big player in the Chinese biopharmaceutical market.
What are her responsibilities there?
Well, she's in charge of production and supply for both their clinical and commercial products. Plus, she oversees the design and implementation of their engineering projects. She's got a lot of experience and leadership skills. And she's also worked in key roles at Fosun Pharma Group and NEWA Technology Inc.
So she brings a wide range of experience. That's impressive.
Yes. And I think this appointment could tell us something about Gland Pharma's strategic direction and their future growth plans.
Interesting. So we've got Gland's strong base business, the Cenexi challenges their move into biologics, and this new director. What does it all mean? Where are they headed? Let's figure that out after a quick break. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different aspects of Gland Pharma, both the good and the bad. The question we started with is this. Is Gland Pharma on track for strong growth? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? There are some definite bright spots, especially with their core business. That 5% growth year over year in their base business revenue is pretty solid. It tells me that they're doing something right with their main operation.
For sure. And that steady 34% EBITDA margin is a good sign as well. It means they're managing costs well and generating a good profit from their core activities. Plus, they're putting money into R&D, expanding into new markets, and they're even moving into biologics. All good signs for the future.
Definitely those moves tell me that they're not just sitting back and relaxing. They're looking for ways to grow and capitalize on new opportunities. That's what you want to see.
Right. But then there's the Cenexi situation, which is a bit of a worry. That negative EBITDA is a red flag. It makes you wonder if they took on more than they could handle with that acquisition.
Yeah, it does make you think, maybe they bit off more than they could chew. Integrating a company is never easy, and sometimes those challenges can hurt profits more than you expect.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how they deal with these challenges with Cenexi. Can they turn things around and reach the goals they've set? And what about Mrs. Wei Huang? What role do you think she'll play in all of this?
Ah, yes, Miss Huang. That's the big question, isn't it? Her appointment could mean a change in strategy for Gland Pharma. Could they be thinking about expanding more in China, given her experience at Shanghai Henlius?
Maybe. Or they could be looking to use her expertise in biopharmaceuticals as they get more into the biologics market. It's all speculation right now, but her arrival definitely adds another layer of intrigue to this story.
It's like they're setting the stage, but we don't know what the play will be yet.
Okay, let's play a little what-if game. What if Gland Pharma wants to become a major player in the global biologics market? What would that mean for them?
That would be a big move. It would be a major change from their focus on generics, which has been their main thing for so long.
Totally. Biologics are a different game altogether. They're way more complex to develop and make than the typical drugs. And the competition in that market is fierce, with some of the biggest companies fighting for a piece of the pie.
You're right. So if they're serious about biologics, they'll need to be at the top of their game. They'll have to spend big on R&D, boost their manufacturing, and deal with lots of regulations.
And they'll have to find a way to stand out in that crowded market. They can't just be another face in the crowd. They have to offer something special, maybe cutting-edge technology, maybe expertise in a specific area or a focus on a particular niche.
I think they have a good base to start with. They've already shown they know how to make and sell injectables, which is a big part of biologics. And their partnership with Dr. Reddy's for the CDMO business gives them a foot in the door for contract development and manufacturing.
And don't forget, they're not afraid to take chances. Remember how they were pioneers in heparin technology in India? That was a game changer for them. Maybe biologics will be their next big win.
It could be. But we also need to remember that the biologics market is still changing. It's a fast-paced area with a lot of things we don't know. There are definitely opportunities, but also some risks.
So what are some things to look out for as Gland Pharma moves into this new space? What signs will tell us if they're succeeding or not?
I'd be watching their R&D pipeline. What kind of biologics are they developing? Are they going for totally new therapies or biosimilars, which are basically generic versions of existing biologics?
And what about the regulatory process? Are they getting approval for their products in big markets like the US and Europe?
Right, regulatory stuff can be a big obstacle in the biologics world. And of course, we need to watch how their partnerships develop. Can they make good deals with other companies to get access to technology skills or ways to distribute their products?
And the money side of things. Will they need more money to fund their biologics plans? How will this affect their overall profits?
All great questions. It's going to be exciting to see how this new chapter unfolds for them.
So we have a company doing well in its main business, dealing with some issues from an acquisition and making a bold move into a potentially profitable new market. What's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
I think the main point is that Gland Pharma is changing. They're at a crossroads. They have a solid base, but they're also taking some big risks. Whether it works out depends on how well they carry out their strategy.
So it's a company to watch for sure. They're not a guaranteed success, but they could be a real success story. And their journey will be interesting to follow no matter what happens.
Right. I agree. They're in a dynamic industry, and they're not afraid of bold moves. That makes them a company worth watching.
Well said. I think we've done a pretty good job digging into Gland Pharma's Q2 FY25 results. We've looked at their finances, their strategies, the challenges they face, and the opportunities ahead. And I think we've given our listeners a lot to consider about the company's future.
We've definitely given them a lot to think about. And hopefully we've made them curious to learn more about Gland Pharma and the pharmaceutical industry in general.
There's always more to learn, more to analyze, and more to talk about. But for now, we'll leave you with this thought. Keep an eye on Gland Pharma. They're a company on the move, and they're not done yet. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious. You know, I was just thinking about Ms. Wei Huang joining the board at Gland Pharma. Her background is really impressive. President of Shanghai Henlius. Over 30 years in the industry. It's like they're bringing in a real expert.
Yeah, she definitely knows her stuff. It makes you wonder what they have in mind for her. It's not just about filling a position. It's about getting specific skills at a really important time for the company.
It's like you're putting together a puzzle. Their base business is doing well. They're pushing into complex injectables, and now this big move into biologics with Dr. Reddy's.
And don't forget, they're growing in the Chinese market, too. That's where Miss Huang's experience is even more interesting. It's almost like she connects all these different things they're doing.
Yeah, like they're getting ready for their next big move, and she's going to be a key part of it.
The timing is interesting for sure. Makes you wonder if they're trying to become a major player in the global biologics market.
Imagine that Gland Pharma, a global leader in biologics. It would be a huge change from their focus on generics.
It would be a bold move, definitely. But they've changed and adapted before. Remember when they were pioneers in heparin technology in India?
Right. They took a risk and it paid off big time. Maybe biologics will be their next big success.
It could be. They're good at making and selling injectables, which is important for biologics. And their new biologics facility shows they're serious about this.
But the biologics market is really competitive, right? They'll be going up against some of the biggest companies in the world. How can they compete with those giants?
They'll need to be smart about their strategy. Maybe focus on specific areas within biologics where they can use their strengths and stand out from the crowd.
Maybe they'll focus on complex injectables for biologics since they're already doing well there. Or maybe they'll go for biosimilars, which are kind of like generic versions of biologics. That could be a way to gain market share quickly.
Those are good possibilities. And they'll need to be creative in making partnerships. Working with other companies will be important for getting new technology, expanding their reach, and dealing with regulations in the biologics market.
It sounds like they have a lot to do, but I have to admire their ambition. They're not afraid to take risks.
That's what makes this so interesting. It's a story about ambition, innovation, and a drive to grow. And we get to see how it all plays out.
That's what's great about these deep dives. We get to explore these companies, understand their strategies, and try to figure out where they're going.
Exactly. It's like we're detectives looking for clues to solve a mystery.
I think we've done a good job of unpacking Gland Pharma's Q2 FY25 results. We've covered their finances, their strategies, their challenges, and the opportunities ahead.
And given our listeners plenty to think about. Will Gland Pharma succeed in the biologics market? Only time will tell, but it will be an interesting journey to watch.
For sure. So to all our listeners, keep an eye on Gland Pharma. This is a company that's shaking things up, and their story is far from over. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, stay curious,